Judging by the numbers on the screen, I don't think that most Americans believe that climate change is the reason why we have these out of control Southern California wildfires. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about climate change and the Southern California wildfires. Now, before I get into it, if you are affected by the fire, if you lost a loved one, may they rest in peace. Hopefully you get everything back on track. This is appearing to be one of the most costly and devastating wildfires in American history. So the first number I saw was 50 billion in damage, then 150 billion in damage. Now I'm seeing $250 billion in damage. And I'm not sure when they're going to end, how they're going to end, because it's a perfect storm. You got dry conditions, the Santa Ana winds. You're talking about hurricane force winds, 100-mile-an-hour gusts sometimes. And all these people in a really populated area, wooden structures, it's just so much that can happen. But again, hopefully we get the best resolution possible. Now, I think a lot of you guys understand why the fires are happening because of what I just mentioned, but some are going to say it's climate change. Please stop. I think that whole thing, that whole grift has run its course. It's run its course. I know Al Gore was very successful in making you believe in climate change or global warming or acid rain, ozone layer. My tinfoil hat theory is that there were so many kids spray painting, tagging buildings in the 80s and 90s. They said, hey, if y'all keep doing that, you're going to deplete the ozone layer. That's my tinfoil hat theory. But I know it's always been some kind of climate alarmist thing all throughout my entire life. And the newest one is climate change. So when anything happens that is out of the ordinary, abnormal, they could say, oh, it's climate change, rather than just trying to blame hot things on global warming. You understand what I'm saying? If it's a cold winter, they say global cooling. They'll just say climate change is a catch-all term. Now, before I go any further into it, let's get to some video from Tucker, because Tucker had a guest on who was talking about how these wildfires were easily predictable. Everybody knew that they were coming. And then the $1 million question I would have is, why wasn't anything truly done to prevent it? Let's watch.
Knew on January 1st, January 2nd, that the fires were coming. Like, it was inevitable that there would be fires. Like, there was like zero doubt among anybody that knows anything about fire in Los Angeles that the fires were coming. The fires were coming. So the governor should have been there. The mayor should have been there. You should just literally, it's all about prevention, in part because by the time the fire trucks are having to weave their way up those little hills of the Pacific Palisades, it's over. I mean, so the other thing to keep in mind is that, okay, well, so that's the first thing, is that they just have to mobilize in advance.
So that's a feature for people who aren't aware of the geography of LA.
It's mountainous. Like, once you get up in the hills, it's mountainous. And if you've never done any kind of mountain driving, it's very difficult. If you got snow, any kind of adverse weather, it's very difficult to drive up those little 2-lane, 1 lane on one side, 1 lane. It's very difficult.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, it's why it's so beautiful, right? Beautiful places are dangerous.
Exactly right.
So that's like the main event. So because I knew I did, my first thing I did is I was like, look, they're going to come out and say it was inevitable. And that's just a total lie.
Because of global warming.
Yeah, because of global warming. And I mean, anyway, there's so many places to go here, but just on the most practical sense, they knew the fires were coming and they didn't do anything. The mayor leaves the country. She flies to Ghana after having promised not to leave the country, by the way, as mayor. She's traveled at least six times out of the country, and she promised not to travel. Why is it important the mayor be there? Because you can say, well, aren't there other people in charge? Because it's an emergency command situation. She has to be able to issue orders and to, waive regulations and make things happen. The governor has to be doing that. They didn't do that. They should have had, by the way, they should get the fire trucks up into the fire areas right away. Yeah. They can also start, they can start clearing brush. They can start, but literally they could just be in those neighborhoods just sitting there.
It's kind of a little bit too late, really, for that, because you're trying to clear brush and all that. You're trying to get everything staged. The fires are already out of control, and those winds. See, that's something else. When they're trying to bring the water in through the aircraft, now we're dealing with really high wind gusts, hurricane force winds in these canyon areas. So it's just going to zip by. Like, you're going to have these canyons that just pretty much channel the wind like a spear.
For days at a time, waiting for the fires to happen, put them out as soon as they happen. I'm not saying that they would have been able to prevent all the fires from happening, but you remember, like, The big fire in 1993, I think it was Laguna Beach, or maybe it was Malibu as well, but it was like 700 homes. We're at 10,000, structures at this point, homes and buildings gone, 200,000 people evacuated. I mean, it's like, it's madness. It never needed to get to that level. Okay, so that's the first thing. They just needed to have been there before the fire started.
Now let's pause. Now some are going to say, well, look, you still would have had a fire even if you did the prevention. Well, maybe, but I don't think it would be this bad. You got to do some prevention. You got to clear the brush. I mean, the same thing everybody been saying, clear the brush, make sure the ground is wet from the water. Real basic stuff. Have water in the reservoir. Some basic things you knew you had to do, you didn't do.
And
it's not climate change. This is just a failure in government.
They didn't do that because the politicians are they're focused on themselves. They're focused on the next political office they want to get. They don't care about actually serving their constituents, right? That's the whole point. Now here's Joe Rogan talking about the fires back in July 24.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons it freaked me out. And he was telling me, he goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean. And there's not a thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it. Because these fires are so big, dude. When they're talking about like...
Look at the size of the fire. I mean, it's crazy.
Thousands of acres that are burning simultaneously with like 40-mile-an-hour winds. And the wind's just blowing embers through the air, and those embers are landing on roofs, and those houses are going up, and they're landing on bushes, and those bushes are going up, and everything's dry. And once it happens in a way where it's so spread out that there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. You just have to.
And this was in July of 2024. So just a few months ago, okay, about 6 months ago, he said that. Now let's look at what we think. Look, so this right here is these are search trends from Google. Climate change down 9%, wildfire up 2,400%.
I don't think Americans are making this connection. And the way we can see this in right here and now, take a look at the monthly change in Google searches. Look at the searches for wildfire, up 2,400%. My goodness gracious. This is the most amount of people searching for wildfires ever, going back since Google Trends began back in 2004. But look at climate change. Look at the change. It doesn't go hand in hand with wildfires. It's actually down. It's down 9%. And I also looked in California. There has been no increase in the number of searches for climate change. So the bottom line is this. Americans are definitely interested in learning about these wildfires. They're interested in following the news about the wildfires, but they are not making that connection with climate change. That's the bottom line here.
That's a really key metric you're looking at there, the connection. Overall, Americans being worried about climate change, what have we seen over time?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of extreme weather events over the last few decades.
Isn't that what I just said earlier? Extreme weather events. We're going to link that to climate change. I mean, it could just be extreme weather because weather is not always constant. There's predictables and certain certainties, like it's going to be snow in Antarctica. But there are some ups and downs and patterns. That's just called abnormal weather. That's not necessarily a thing that is being caused by human beings.
Right? Hurricanes, heat waves, wildfires. You might expect that Americans worry about climate change would climb. Climate change worry a lot. You go back to 1991, it was 35%. Now, it was a little bit higher in 2007, a little bit higher in 2022. But look at this. In 2023, the last time we have data, 39%. That is not statistically significantly different from this 35% back in 1991. So despite all these extreme weather events, Americans are really no more worried about climate change than they were, what is that, now nearly 35 years ago? I mean,
because we don't really care. Americans do not care about climate change. This is a thing that the media have been pushing. This is a thing that a lot of your elites, your politicians have been pushing, but regular people that you just meet out on the street don't care. They're worried about what's happening right now. Okay, we got wildfires. And we got a really populated area, Southern California, 2,400% up. Yes, because they're worried about what's happening right now. All right, I live in the valley. My house might be in danger. Maybe it's not going to be in danger. My friend lives here. My friend lives there. What am I going to do? People are worried about that. They're not worried about your political and social cause that really didn't work. But as I close, I want to say this. Again, shout out to you guys who may be affected by the fire. Hopefully everything works out for the best. If you lost anybody, may they rest in peace. Prayers out to you guys. And to the media. I mean, we're done. This is what I say. The mainstream media sucks. We're finished. The narratives you push, the lies you tell, we're not buying into anymore. Alternative media is just going up and up and up, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop because ultimately the mainstream media, as it currently is on television, doesn't exist without us. All we're doing is just removing our eyes from that and going over here because we know where the truth is. Very simple, but I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about climate change as it relates to the wildfires? Do you think that's what caused it, climate change? Or is it a predictable thing that can happen? Like my man said earlier, everybody knew the fires were coming. Okay, the normal rain that they get right around this time, I guess winter rain, it didn't happen. Everything's really dry. Got a lot of these built up areas up in these canyons that really probably shouldn't have anybody there, but they're there. You got brush all around them. All it takes is for one of those really high winds, 100 miles an hour, to knock power lines over, get a spark. Now you got a wildfire. You didn't clear the brush. You didn't have any water in the reservoir. You worried about DEI, all kind of stuff. So when the fire happens, you're not really prepared to fight it at all. Yes, it would have been a fight if you had your tools there like you were supposed to, but it would have been a fight. They're looking at apartment buildings just go up in smoke and they can't do anything about it. That's what's happening here. It's not even about the so-called climate change that the media keeps talking about, which is, again, why we don't follow them anymore. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.